Released on October 31st, 1999, Twisted Metal 4 uses the same gameplay from Twisted Metal 3, but reworks it in a way that makes it a lot more fun and Twisted Metal-like. After the failure of Twisted Metal 3, 99 Studios could only go up from here, and while Twisted Metal 4 still has a sorta silly vibe, its gameplay is its strong suit. So without further ado, let's discuss the good things and bad things of Twisted Metal 4.
Way there's life, there's dope. Way there's life, there's dope. And what did you expect to not? And more violent approach. And more violent approach.
As mentioned before, Twisted Metal 4 uses the combat engine from Twisted Metal 3, but it feels a lot more refined this time. For one, the vehicles feel a lot more controllable than last time. I never felt slippery or like my car was out of control. Secondly, the new vehicles and weapons are very unique and fun to use. The Freeze Remote, a remote-controlled bomb that freezes any nearby vehicles once detonated. Proximity Mine, watch your step. Even the slightest movement near this explosive will heavily damage any vehicle, no matter how much armor they have. MIRVs, heat-seeking missiles that chase down enemies all around the map and won't stop until the job's done. Rain 2 Missile, they're pretty much the same as the MRIVs, but it shoots out homing napalm shots instead. Autolobs, also like the MIRV, Autolobs have a much shorter range but do a lot more damage. There's also a few new special moves too, such as Hyperspace, which will put players back into one of the many spawn points of the map they're on. These new weapons and moves are very useful, and add to the already varied weapon pool of the game. Before I go into the new characters, I want to mention that this game has a story. In this game, the Twisted Metal tournament started in the 1900s and was in the style of a circus that would travel from town to town. Sweet Tooth, as a young boy, was fascinated by the idea, so he left home and followed the tournament. Sweet Tooth took the persona of a clown and fought in the tournament in an ice cream truck. Sweet Tooth won and wishes to become the star of Twisted Metal. Calypso grants this wish by granting him a plethora of power, and the tournament continues with its chaos and mayhem. One day, Sweet Tooth becomes envious of Calypso, so with his power and a clown posse, he overthrows Calypso and helms the tournament. I like this idea of a story. It's a little cheesy, but I think the idea of Twisted Metal being led by someone else is interesting. The only flaw I have with this story is Sweet Tooth's way of granting wishes to contestants is pretty close to how Calypso does it, by screwing over the winners with their poorly worded statements. Now I know, the leaders of Twisted Metal are meticulous about what the winners say, and I'm not saying Sweet Tooth doesn't have to screw over their contestants. What I'm saying is, I wish there was more to distinguish Sweet Tooth and Calypso whenever they take over Twisted Metal. Otherwise, I like this little story. Now, onto the new characters. Orbital. Driving a nice sleek sports car, Orbital is a cyborg spy with half of his face being made of metal. Because of this, he's an outcast of society, and just wants to be like everybody else. His special attack is the Tele-Orb, which is an orb that pulls enemies in and demolishes them. Pizza Boy. Connor Nazang drives a street racer, which he also uses for pizza deliveries to participate in the Twisted Metal contest. Pizza Boy has a gangsta attitude, and is very much like Thumper, although a lot more cornier. His vehicle shoots out 2 pizza cutters as a special. Calypso. Filled with revenge, Calypso arms himself with a nuke-mobile to take back his status as the leader of the Twisted Metal contest. His truck is rather sluggish, but packs a punch with its nuclear missile that can be detonated near enemies to obliterate them. Quattro. Quattro is a robotic cop, part of the Intergalactic Justice System, and is only participating to get close enough to Sweet Tooth. He wants an end to the tournament, as it's caused pain and suffering all over the world. Quattro drives a tiny bike that isn't so great in the armored department, but does have great handling and speed. His bike can send out a microwave to damage and push back his enemies. Goggle Eyes. A rather odd fellow, Goggle Eyes has a severe hatred of bugs after witnessing a cockroach win a pie-eating contest. All he wants is to exterminate every single pest in the world. Going along with the exterminator theme, Goggle Eyes uses a toxic gas to frighten anyone willing to get close. Meter Maid. Driven by Zenita Corvette, the small car doesn't have much protection, but makes up for it with its other stats. Meter Maid likes to ruin people's day, and wants to win the Twisted Metal contest to inconvenience and annoy Sweet Tooth. Meter Maid releases an energy ray to pulverize the other contestants. Microblast. A leprechaun hell-bent on becoming larger, and will go through destruction and chaos to see his wish granted. Microblast's vehicle of choice is a toy car filled with a Gatlinger, which shoots a barrage of speed missiles in a short amount of time. Trash Man. A man obsessed with trash and filthiness. Trash Man wants to turn the whole world into one huge landfill. He drives a garbage truck that can violently slam enemies into the ground. The Jonases. A family fascinated by Sweet Tooth and the Twisted Metal contest, the Jonases want to win so they can spend time with Sweet Tooth. The father drives the family wagon, equipped with Hornets, 3 homing missiles that will leave more than just dents on the other vehicles. Drag Queen. Dennis Petuna Flanders likes to drag race while dressed as a lady. Flanders drives a hot rod, equipped with a flamethrower to burn incoming opponents. Mr. Zombie. Driven by Rob Zombie, this contestant wants the whole world to hear his thrashing music. Mr. Zombie drives the Dracula, and it throws out a spinning skull to shock enemies. There's also the new mini-bosses, Crusher, a construction vehicle equipped with teeth on the front to crush anybody foolish enough to get close. Moonbuggy, an out-of-this-world vehicle with a strange design. It shoots out a magnetic projectile that pulls in vehicles and blasts them to a pulp. RC Car, a tiny toy car with a huge missile on the front that will do massive damage to whatever it targets. There's also Super Thumper, Super Slam, Super Axle, Super Auger, and Sweet Tooth as the other mini-bosses. Okay, that was a lot. The characters are still pretty cheesy like last game, but shine in gameplay as they're quite varied and each has their own purpose. I do like some of the characters. Quattro is the first fully robot character we've gotten. Calypso participating for revenge is a nice touch, and Orbital, while a bit cliché, is also cool. Despite the other characters' shortcomings in terms of personality, they can at least say they have more uniqueness in gameplay than the new characters in Twisted Metal 3. Okay, let's move on to the other parts of the gameplay. Twisted Metal 4's default controls kinda suck, but luckily, players can change the layout of their moves any way they want to. A pretty neat feature for the PS1 if you ask me. Speaking of neat features for the PS1, there's an option that allows players to optimize the gameplay for a more stable frame rate, or they can optimize the visuals so the game looks better. Of course, consoles and PCs have this kind of option nowadays, but how many PS1 games can say that they have this feature? Anyways, let's get back to the general features. Players can finally get rid of their level passwords, as they can now save their progress to a save file on a memory card. Furthermore, the tournament doesn't end after the final boss battle. Players can go through the level ladder again, but this time, the opponents are a lot tougher and harder to kill, so it's not for the faint of heart. There's a create a car mode in this game that does exactly what it's named after. Players are given the option to customize the build of the car, the color of the car, the kind of vehicle they want it to be, its special attack, and other customizations. They can also save their car thanks to the new memory card compatibility. After the enemies in each level are destroyed, a mini-boss must be defeated in order to continue. The mini-bosses correspond to the level they appear on. For example, Crusher appears on the construction yard level because he's a construction vehicle. Also, in this game, players are granted 4 lives to go through the tournament with, and they will only regenerate after the player has completed the level ladder. Players can also modify the deathmatch settings with new options like changing the map and characters after every round without having to go back to the main menu. Twisted Metal 4's visuals are pretty much Twisted Metal 3's graphics, but they look slightly better. Let's start with the art style. Twisted Metal 4 looks like its predecessor if they changed it to look more dingy and dark. It fits a lot better with the idea of Twisted Metal. The game really makes it look like the world is in pandemonium, and destruction is an everyday thing. The main menu also has a carnival aesthetic due to Sweet Tooth and his clown posse taking over. It's very appropriate considering the creepy and dark nature. Not to mention, the art just looks really cool. If only we had it uncompressed. The character design in this game is alright, not much of a step up from Twisted Metal 3. The levels, on the other hand, are a huge step up from the predecessor. Twisted Metal 3 had some pretty solid levels, but Twisted Metal 4 turns it up to 11. The levels are a lot more interactive, there's plenty more secrets, and overall, they just have great design that works with 2 players all the way up to 7 other enemies. Speaking of the levels, it's time for the obligatory analysis of them. Construction Yard. A big open area of land filled with construction serves as a battlefield for the beginning of the tournament. This level has a lot of verticality, so players will find themselves going up and falling down a lot, not to mention the portals that they'll find themselves using. In the middle of the map sits a huge crane that can be used to lift enemies up and throw them through the incinerator for an easy victory. The crane explodes after the last enemy is destroyed, so it can't be used on Crusher, the mini-boss. Neon City. The contestants find themselves in a futuristic city filled with amazing technology and bright lights. Players can use the train tunnel to get to higher ground and upgrade their arsenal. Be careful though, the train that passes through will deal damage if it strikes. Following the futuristic theme, Moonbuggy comes out to battle with the last standing contestant. Road Rage. A series of highways with many secret paths that can be found by destroying the walls that hide them. Boost pads are found throughout the level, and they'll fling the vehicles at top speeds across the map. Super Thumper appears in this level as the mini-boss. The Bedroom. The contestants are shrunk down and must use the bed, desk, toy car ramps, and hidden alleys to their advantage. Everything in this map connects. One path always leads to another. Players can spot Mr. Grimm's and Sweet Tooth's artwork from Twisted Metal 3 on the walls as a nice little Easter egg. After the other vehicles are fried, RC Car drops in to try and put an end to the last remaining contestant. Amazonia 3000 BC, an ancient temple ground surrounded by other weird architectures. The player can stay safe and drive on the stable road near the temples, or be risky and jump around the torn pieces of land to gain some extra weapons. Super Axel seeks out the last contestant standing, for he is the mini-boss of this level. The Oil Rig. The contestants travel to the middle of the ocean to battle on the platforms of an oil rig. Don't fall off. The drop into the water will destroy the vehicle of any clumsy driver. Some of the platforms have barriers to block off players from falling off, but they'll still have to be accurate with their driving and use the portals when necessary. Super Auger comes out to play whenever the player is the last vehicle standing. Oh wait, Super Slam also joins in on the fun. Minions Maze. A devilish and confusing maze will have players fearing for their lives as they try to navigate and fight off enemies. Because it's a maze, there's a lot of dead ends and portals to confuse contestants and potentially hinder their performance. Minion spawns in his battleground to try and finish off the last contestant. The Carnival. Sweet Tooth invites the finalist to his carnival to finish things once and for all. The level is filled with tents, secret areas, and a roller coaster surrounds the arena. Players can hop on top of the tents or the roller coaster for safety and extra weapons. Sweet Tooth tests the worthiness of the last finalist and will grant their wish if they can destroy him. There's also 8 extra levels that are unlocked after the player beats the game once and are only playable in the deathmatch mode. They lack an actual environment, they're just colored polygons surrounded by a black background. I'll quickly go over them. King of the Kill. A huge arena with a hill in the middle that contains weapons, so players will need to dominate the hill to get as much as possible. Nowhere to Hide. True to its name, Nowhere to Hide is a straight plain. There's no walls or any shelter players can hide behind. Octagon. 4 octagons sit in the middle of the map and will bounce vehicles back with great force if one is to touch them. Son of a Ditch. Players will want to stay on the higher ground of this map, as falling down into the ditch leaves players vulnerable and certain death. The Citadel. 4 large structures stand on the blue polygons of the map, and players can use them for protection. Portals can be found that lead to the top of the towers, and players can find weapons there. The Islands. 4 floating squares serve as this level. Players will need to watch their step and be careful when jumping to the next platform. The Pits. Just like Nowhere to Hide, this level is a huge plane with nothing to its name except the red polygons that can be destroyed, leaving a hole for contestants to fall through if they're not careful. Tic-Tac-Toast. Similar to the Pits level, the whole ground is made of red polygons, so the entire map is destructible. One thing I like about the maps is their verticality. There's always a way to get higher and higher. It provides players with new paths to get away from enemies, extra health, and weapons. It just adds to the overall value and depth of the map. The extra levels are just for pure chaos, reasons why they're separate from the tournament mode. They're made for the late night sleepovers where everybody chooses Sweet Tooth, uses their specials, and sees who's the last one standing. Overall, the maps in this game are amazing. The main maps provide value and just good design with their many pathways and verticality, and the secret levels are just for pure chaos and messing around with the game. Alright, let's move on to the cutscenes. This game, like Twisted Metal 3, also uses CGI, and well, it looks as good as the PS1 could produce. Remember, this was 1999. By the way, the cutscenes in this video are coming from Snazzy AI, who upscaled the videos to 1080p, 30 FPS. And the actual cutscenes run at 240p, 15 FPS. Anyways, the endings are still pretty corny, like from last game. Only a few are actually decent. The other ones are just straight up weird. To be fair, the endings aren't completely rushed like Twisted Metal 3. The cutscenes actually take their time to establish a bit more personality to the characters. Not to mention, their wishes align with the person they are, so one can see the reasoning behind each character's wish. All the endings first take place in Sweet Tooth's tower, and it still has that creepy carnival vibe like from the main menus. Sweet Tooth's main henchman speaks for him, and that's what the winner wants as their wish. That's all I really have to say about the visuals. The maps are great, the art direction is what it should be, although the characters are hit or miss. Like its predecessor, Twisted Metal 4 uses a licensed soundtrack, including songs from Surus, Cypress Hill, Ghoul Spoon, Skuld, and the most prominent Rob Zombie and 1 Minute Silence. Twisted Metal 3 had some fine music choices, but Twisted Metal 4 just blows it out of the water. The music pretty much speaks for itself. It's energetic, fits the level being played, and it's just good in general. The sound effects aren't too much of an upgrade from Twisted Metal 3, they are more refined and impactful, but I can't really say much else about them. The voice acting is also decent. There isn't a narration done by Sweet Tooth before every level. Instead, there's a description of the map during the loading screen. Other than that, there isn't much to say about the sound department of Twisted Metal 4. Twisted Metal 4 practically doesn't have any extras. It has its obligatory cheat codes for some extra fun, and the secret deathmatch levels, but not much else besides that. As such, I will be moving on to the issues of this game. Apart from the aforementioned bland characters, I really only have one issue with this game. Most of the bosses in this game can be killed by luring them near you, going into a portal, placing down a few proximity mines, backing up, and watching the enemy get blasted to oblivion. This can make boss battles a little too easy, but obviously, if a player wants a challenge, they could just limit themselves from doing that. Pretty much every issue I had with the previous game was fixed. Better controls, more variety, an actual Twisted Metal feel, cooler weapons, and an appropriate art style. There's also lag that happens every so often, but if you ask me, it really doesn't affect the flow of things. Really, the only thing bringing this game down is the characters, as they're uninspired and don't fit at all with the vibe of Twisted Metal. But other than that, the gameplay is really fun, and players can have a different experience with the tournament mode with the varied vehicles. Twisted Metal 4 improves pretty much everything its predecessor fell short in. The characters have a lot more variety, the levels are fantastic, there's more stuff to do, and the cutscenes, while still uninspired, at least have some merit. That's kind of everything Twisted Metal 4 has to offer. 13 characters that are playable from the start, with plenty of variety, and are fun to use, not to mention the extra vehicles that are unlocked after beating the tournament mode. 8 main levels with very unique and in-depth design, and 8 extra levels for deathmatch mayhem. A banging soundtrack that never fails to pump adrenaline, a new create a card mode for even more variety in vehicle selection, cutscenes and character design that are hit or miss, the ability to continue tournament mode with harder enemies after the player beats the game, and a lot of other stuff from previous games, including Twisted Metal 3's 4-player mode. Twisted Metal 4's main attraction is its gameplay. And while the silly nature and characters do take a hit on the game's quality, the game is still very worth playing. And until next time, actually, I'll let Melvin do this one.
Someone will see you out. Goodbye!